Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saldias, and today I'll be presenting my report about the responsibilities of directors of multinational companies with respect to business ethics and CSR, that's corporate social responsibility in Chile. I've chosen two topics that I think are relevant to the current situation in Chile. The first one is corruption and bribery as well, and the second one is sustainability and environment. Chile is rich in natural resources, beautiful places. Everyone knows that. It's common knowledge. Beautiful and international destination. It's always been stable and a symbol of prosperity in the region. I'm sorry. The net immigration rate in the table that I've attached proves that. However, the success that might be perceived from the outside underlines a major issue that it's at an all-time high, that is corruption. It continues to grow. Bribery and corruption have always been very present in Chilean society. It's very common to obtain positions of power based on the people that you know. There's a nepotism. This has a direct impact in the country's sustainable environment because the people that are most qualified are not the ones that are doing the job. The audience know that if the government fails to address environmental concerns and adopt sustainable practices, there will be consequences. I'll be showing a couple of cases in which directors of companies have been affected, them and their companies. This report serves as a vital exploration of the different challenges faced by directors in Chile. There's going to be an in-depth investigation of corruption, bravery, sustainability, environmental issues, and I expect to show responsible leadership and a more sustainable and equitable future for the Chilean society that has been suffering in the last year. The first part of the analysis will touch on the nominated issues and how they affect the directors, the responsibilities of the directors. First, I would like to say that unlike other countries in the region, directors of these companies are held accountable for their actions. Myself, I studied 2 years of law. I know that there is huge respect for the Constitution and for the criminal code. I've attached a link to the social crisis that started in Chile pre-COVID, in which a big part of the population demanded changes. They went out to the streets. A communist government won the elections a couple of years ago, but ironically, when they proposed a new constitution that it would involve more liberties and more freedoms and more rights to the people, the population chose a more strict constitution, more conservative, showing that this legal framework was actually what the people wanted, both in public and the private sectors. There is the law 2393, which is the criminal liability of legal entities, holding companies accountable for corrupt acts committed in their name of their behalf. I've seen myself, directors of these companies going to jail. Like I said before, I'll give 2 examples of this. I can also say that the main problem is not that there is no legal framework. The problem is the enforcement of these. It has to do with the implemented ISOs. They are there, like the ISO anti-bribery and management systems, which is 30001. There are companies who have implemented these ISOs, but unfortunately they haven't been enforcing them. Now, when it comes to sustainability and environmental protection, we know that internationally the battle intensifies. In Chile is very similar. Directors must integrate and comply with environmental considerations. They need to report and create transparency within the company and with stakeholders. Another example of this is incorporating sustainability into corporate governance, which has to do with ISO 26000, which regulates social responsibility, offering guidance on social responsibility and encourages organizations to consider the social and environmental impact of their decisions. Risk management as well, it's very important. ISO 31000 and 22301, which talks about risk management itself, outlining principles and guidelines for risk management. Also, the business continuity management systems. For an overall analysis, Chile has made significant progress in environmental protection through legislation, through these legal frameworks and laws protecting the country from themselves, basically. However, the responsibility lies not only with the government, but also with the private sector. The pressure of the public has increased. but there's still many cases in which directors have been held responsible for the company's action. They haven't been always favorable to their interests. I'll show in the next point 2 cases of this. Now, for the second part of the analysis, what are the consequences of the non-compliance of these laws? The legal liabilities, of course, the directors who fail to engage or to prevent these practices, they're held accountable. They could face, and they have faced, criminal charges. Then there's the loss of trust, of course, and reputational damage that the companies suffer. The regulatory sanctions as well, similar to other countries, and because of the ISO regulations that I've previously mentioned, they might face regulatory actions. They might even get disqualified for the board of members. Now, when it comes to sustainability, the non-compliance of these laws have legal and environmental fines. I said I was going to talk about 2 cases. One, it's the emblematic case of Pascua-Lama mine. This was a Canadian mining company called Barrick Gold, who failed to comply with these environmental laws. They faced the public scrutiny, and the government got involved, ended in a suspension because it was threatening the local communities. Glacier melting, the biodiversity in the region as well was affected. The second one that I think is very relevant, my dad works for a company that belongs to the same industry, which is the import of pulp, cellulose, which is very, very big in Chile. Several companies in Chile are currently involved in this industry. It raised environmental concerns. There's a very famous case, and this is the second one, from Arauco cellulose. They export to Norway, Japan, and other countries in the region. The government ordered to clean up the pollution that they created on the wetlands of the south of Chile. Because of these 2 cases, we know now that directors in Chile have significant responsibilities in preventing corruption and at the same time promoting sustainability. They have to comply to these responsibilities if they don't want to face the consequences. They have to be proactive, and they have to safeguard their professional reputation, protecting the interest of the companies, and they have to contribute in a more responsible and sustainable way to the business landscape in Chile. Now, for the key findings, we have differences and similarities. Differences, I would say that there's the legal focus, the bribery and corruption. They center on this legal framework that I talked about before, with the anti-corruption laws and regulations, also the ethical standards. Then we have, on the other hand, the sustainability and environmental responsibilities. The consequences, of course, of non-compliance differ significantly between these 2 areas. For bribery and corruption, directors face legal liabilities and reputational damage, reparations as well. In contrast, the non-compliance with sustainability and environmental laws can lead to fines, lawsuits, supply chain risks. And then when it comes to stakeholder engagement, the difference is that while both areas require stakeholder engagement, the nature of the engagement is different. In bribery, the directors might engage in regulatory authorities, government officials, law enforcement agencies, and then for sustainability, they're responsible, and they're typically responsible and involve stakeholders. These are the investors, employees, NGOs, environmental organizations. So while bribery and corruption responsibilities and sustainability and environment have this different focuses and consequences, they share common themes of promoting accountability, transparency, and ethical conduct. They embrace the responsibilities that can enhance a company's reputation. They need to manage these risks effectively. They need to communicate with all these stakeholders in a proper manner, and they have to foster competitive advantage if they wish to keep maintain Chile's reputation in the region and internationally. As a conclusion, I would say that directors in Chile play a crucial role fighting corruption and bribery. I think that at the same time, they need to promote sustainability and environmental responsibility. They need to follow the country's legal framework. ethical practices. They need to they need to follow and support anti-corruption laws. They need to have a commitment with and enhance the company's competitive advantage in Chile's business landscape. As I said, it's very important. There's very high reputation that needs to be maintained. They need to emphasize the responsible business practices they keep attracting foreign investment. They need to embrace a culture of integrity, sustainability, and ethical conduct. I would like to say that at a personal level, I've experienced the reputation that the country has in other places. I've lived and worked in the United States. There's a huge gap between, I would say, countries like Cuba, Honduras, Colombia, Peru. Chile has a very high reputation, and I think that the focus needs to be here, whether it is, as I said before, fighting corruption and bribery, or the relation between that and the sustainability and environmental responsibility. I think that to finalize, I would say that the main focus should be, from the director, should be keeping this reputation. And yes, so thank you very much. I hope you would like that you enjoy my presentation.